Hello, welcome to Chapter 2 for Macroeconomics, the Market System, and the Circular Flow. Alright, so economic systems is a particular set of institutional arrangements and a coordinating mechanism used to respond to the economizing problem. Now, systems are going to differ by how much decentralized decision making is enjoyed in the country versus how much centralized government command and control is used to direct economic activity in that country. It also differs by who owns the factors of production and how economic activities are coordinated and directed. Alright, so question 1. An economic system, I have a chance to pause this and answer it. So the answer is going to be B here. Is a particular set of institutional arrangements and a coordinating mechanism used to respond to the economizing problem. And question 2. Economic systems differ from one another based on who owns the factor of production and. I have a chance to pause this and answer it. Alright, so this is going to be B. So how economic activities are coordinated and directed. Now, laissez-faire capitalism is the ideal economic system envisioned by a famous economist named Adam Smith in his popular book called The Wealth of Nations. So he states in there that there is no need for government interference in markets because the system is a self-correcting one. Now, people do interact in markets to buy and sell, and they do need some form of protection. So that's kind of where the government comes in, and they're needed to protect private property from theft and provide a legal environment for contract enforcement. Now, a command system is going to be known as socialism or communism. Resources are going to be owned by the government, and economic activity is going to be coordinated by a central planning board. Many countries formerly under communist or socialist control have begun reducing their reliance on central planning and implementing more of a market-oriented system. However, there are still some communist countries like North Korea and Cuba. So question 3 here. The economies of North Korea and Cuba are. I'll give you a chance to pause this and answer it. And so that answer is going to be A. Similar in that they are both basically command systems. Now, the market system is a mix of decentralized decision making with some government control. Resources are owned by private individuals and institutions. Markets and prices coordinate and direct economic activity. Now, decentralized is going to be more decision making power to be vested in teams, divisions, or local branches instead of just a single center of power. Now, each participant acts in their own self-interest, which means goods and services are produced and resources are supplied by whoever is willing and able to do so. And then you, most importantly, have your monetary rewards. So these are possible, but not without some degree of financial risk. In the U.S. version of capitalism, the government plays a substantial role. So private individuals and firms own most of the private property resources, the land and capital. Private property coupled with freedom to negotiate binding legal contracts enables individuals and businesses to obtain, control, use, and dispose of property. Private property rights encourage investment, innovation, and exchange of assets, maintenance of property, and economic growth. Property rights extend through patents, copyrights, and trademarks. And I usually stop here just to talk about patents for a little bit. Patents are very important, especially in the world of medicine. So we wouldn't have a lot of medicine we have today if it wasn't for patents. So relatively, when you make your formula, all the time, the money, everything you've invested into making that formula, you place a patent on it, and no one can copy it, right? So obviously, if they do, they will get sued. And with that patent, you're able to continue to innovate your medicine, right? So like if you're trying to cure some disease, or there's a company out there trying to cure some disease, they can continue to innovate and make their product better. Relatively, there'd be no point in making medicine if you couldn't protect it, right? Like people are not going to waste their time and their money just to get undercut and outsold, right? Or have someone sell their formula for a cheaper price. And then obviously same goes for copyrights and trademarks and other scenarios, but I just think patents in the medicine world are very important. Definitely something to talk about, think about. All right, moving on. And then there's also the freedom of enterprise. So entrepreneurs and businesses have the freedom to obtain and use resources within broad limits to choose what goods to produce and to sell these products in the market of their preference. Okay, question 4 here. So freedom of enterprise. I'll give you a chance to pause this and answer it. Okay, so the answer is going to be C here. So allows businesses with the broad limits to choose what goods to produce. Now, freedom of choice Owners of property and money or resources can use resources as they choose. Workers can choose the training occupations of their choice, and consumers are free to spend their income freely. Self-interest. So entrepreneurs try to maximize profits or minimize losses. Resource suppliers try to maximize income, and consumers want to maximize their satisfaction. So the economy will benefit if competition is present. Competition requires two or more independently acting buyers and sellers. This serves as a decentralized economic power. Also requires freedom to enter or leave the markets. So, quick note. So competition. The example I like to use are phones. So let's think if Apple was the only phone producer or smartphone producer, they could make whatever phone they want, sell for whatever price they want. You could have a really crappy phone for a really expensive price, but it wouldn't matter, right? Because they could do whatever. Technically, they could do whatever they wanted, because they're the only person who makes phones, and phones are essential, right? But since you have Android and Google and all these other phone producers they have to compete with, they are going to have to make a good product, right? Because if they don't make a good product, you're not going to buy an iPhone. And then in that, it also keeps the price down, right? It's because they can't sell for a super high price. They have to, Android could essentially make a better phone, sell for a lower price, and eventually one day you're maybe going to switch over depending on what it is. But with the presence of competition, it keeps prices low, but products good. All right, so market and prices. So this reflects the decisions made on each side of the market and determines the set of product and resource prices. This guides owners, entrepreneurs, and consumers as they all make choices based on their respective self-interest. Now, in the market system, the monetary rewards for creating new products or production techniques accrue directly to the innovator. The market system therefore encourages extensive use and rapid development of complex capital goods. And now money is going to perform several functions, but first and foremost it is a medium of exchange, so it makes trade easier. Now entrepreneurs assess and manage the business risk of a firm. An active but limited government is a financial characteristic of modern market systems. Now, although market systems promote a high degree of efficiency in the use of its resources, it has certain inherent shortcomings called market failures. Governments can often increase the overall effectiveness of a market system. Okay, so question 5. In a market system, the task of assessing and managing the business risk of a firm is taken on by the firms. I'll give you a chance to pause this and answer it. So the answer is going to be C here, entrepreneurs. And then here's just a quick snapshot of the Index of Economic Freedom. It's using elements such as trade policy, property rights, and government intervention. It ranked about 180 different economies across the world. And this was back in 2021. I think what's interesting to see here, though, is you have Singapore, New Zealand, Australia in top. And then you actually have the United States here at number 20. All right, so market systems reward individual and businesses for development of new technologies, thereby encouraging their development and implementation. Now, specializations allow economies to take better advantage of their resources and their capabilities. Right, so maybe some economies are better at producing a certain product than other products. Division of labor or human specialization increases productivity by making use of differences in abilities, fostering learning by doing and saving time. Now, geographic specialization can be regional or it can be international. All right, so the use of money, so it makes trade easier. It is much easier to sell what you produce for money than buy what you want. Otherwise, you would have to barter for what you want, which means that you not only have to find someone that has what you want, but also what you have. Now, money is socially defined as whatever society accepts as a medium of exchange. So without money, people would have to barter, obviously, right? So the direct exchange of one good or service for another good or service. And then just a quick note here. I like to talk about crypto here. So one of the reasons like Bitcoin and crypto is as valuable as it is because people say it is, right? So since people accept that as money, as an exchange, they say it's valuable, then it becomes a medium of exchange, right? If no one accepted it anywhere, it probably wouldn't be as valuable as it is, right? All right, so the use of money is going to permit trade to be accomplished despite what's called a non-coincident of wants. So if Florida wants wheat, but Idaho only has potatoes, there would be no exchange. But with money, there will now be exchange for whatever is needed, right? So money comes in here, allows us to do trade around the world, trade with each other, right? Obviously, without that, we wouldn't be making many things. We wouldn't have a high cost of living as we have, and everything would be a lot more difficult. So question 6 here. So on the base information, it can be said that. I'll give you a chance to pause this and answer it. Okay, so answer here is going to be A. So no coincident wants exist between any two states. And you can go ahead and pause this if you didn't pause it. And you can read that no state here has anyone that the other two want, so there can be nothing done. Now, although the market system promotes efficiency, it has certain shortcomings. There can be an overproduction of goods that have social costs and an underproduction of goods that have social benefits. There are tendencies for businesses to increase monopoly power. So monopoly is a one producer of a product, right? No competition. You can have a misallocation of resources. You can have possible government failure. However, the government may be needed to alleviate market failures and increase effectiveness of a market system. Now, there are 5 questions that highlight the economic choices for underlying the production possibility model. All economies, whether a market system or otherwise, all economies, whether a market system or otherwise, must address these questions. What goods and services will be produced? How will they be produced? Who will get them? And how will the system accommodate change? And how will the system promote technological progress? So consumer sovereignty. This is a determination by consumers of the types and quantities of goods and services that will be produced. Consumers' direction of production through their dollar votes. So dollar votes are consumers. Consumers spend their dollar votes are relatively us spending our income on goods and services that we are most willing able to buy. Right. So whatever you go out there and buy on a daily basis is being bought by the masses. That's you telling the market that's what we want. Right. So the moment you stop doing that, you tell the market we don't want that anymore. So if there are not enough votes for a product, the firm will cease production of that product. And businesses must match their production choices with consumer choices, or else face losses and bankruptcy. So a small example for this. So say you're a firm that produces basketballs and volleyballs. If you are seeing a decrease in the amount of volleyballs being bought and an increase in the amount of basketballs being bought, you're obviously going to start producing more basketballs to match the consumer demand to increase your revenue. Right? It would be inefficient if you just started producing more volleyballs and they just sit on the shelf. Now, when firms face competition, the market forces the producers to use the most efficient production techniques. Otherwise, they will be driven out of business. Now, the combination of technology and the prices of the required resources determines the most efficient production technique. All right, so here, the producer will rationally choose the least costly method because it's the method that leads to the greatest profit. And in this scenario is going to be 2. So we are looking at produce $15 worth of a bar of soap. And we have our labor, our land, our capital, and our entrepreneurial ability with our units and with our total cost. So each technique has their own cost. The first one is 15, second one's 13, third one is 15. And we're going to take that $15 and subtract it from each technique cost. And obviously the second one gives us our most economic profit at $2. Okay, there are a couple questions very similar to this, about 4 or 5. I'm going to walk through the first one, and then as more come, I'll move a little bit quicker because they're relatively about the same thing. So suppose 30 units of product A can be produced by employing just labor and capital in the 4 ways shown below. Assuming the price of labor and capital are $2 and $3 respectively. If the price of their product A is 50 cents, the firm will realize. Alright, so technique 1 here. So we have labor at $2 for the labor category. We have capital at $3 for the capital category. And then you can see here that for the technique 1, we have the 2 goes to the 4, and the 3 goes to the 2. And then for the $2 for the second technique is 3, and the 3 is for the third. And the technique 3 we have $2 at 2. Then we have our $3 at 5, right? And the same for the last one. And then we're going to take that 30 units times it by the 50 cents. That gives us 15. And then we're going to take the total revenue, or sorry, sorry. We're going to take total revenue, minus it by the total cost for each one. So 15 minus 14, 15 minus 15, 15 minus 19, 15 minus 13. And of all those, obviously we can see that the $2 is going to be our best decision. So we're going to have a net profit of $2. Okay, question 8. Similar question. So we're going to have labor at $6, capital at $5. And then we are looking at which technology is most efficient for producing Y. You're producing 24 of Y at $2. That gives us a total revenue of $48. So they go ahead and did that math for us in this question. So same thing. We have $6 for our labor category, $5 for our capital category, 6 times 2, 5 times 6. So for technique 1 is a total of $42. And then we can do the same thing for all the other ones, right? So the 6 times the 3, 5 times the 5. And then we're going to take that revenue 48 minus it by the cost of each one all the way down. And we can see that $6 for technique 1 is our highest profit. Okay, same thing here again. But now our labor is $11 and capital is $10. Total revenue for the product is $94. And we're just going to go across again for each one. Subtract the cost from the revenue all the way down. And we see again that technique 1 for $12 is going to be the most efficient, so that's B. Okay, this is a similar question, but just something a little different. So the thing that's different here, so if the price per unit of capital was decreased from $4 to $2, what would be the most efficient technique? So on this graph here, we're going to scratch out the $4 for the capital and change it to 2. And then you're going to have 2 times 3, 1 times 2, 2 times 1, and 3 times 1. So that takes care of the technique for A. And then you're going to do the same thing. There are 2 times 2, the 1 times 1, 2 times 2, 3 times 2 for B, right? And then the same for C and D. They give us our total revenue of 36 up here. Subtract it from the cost all the way down. And we can see that C here is the most efficient. So your answer here will be B. So a market system is based on the willingness to pay principle, which means that the consumer is willing and able to pay. The consumer gets the product. The ability to pay depends on the income, which depends on the amount of resources the person has and the price those resources obtain in the market. Now, in a market economy, the distribution of output will be determined primarily by the consumer income and product prices. Okay, so question 11. So in a market economy, the distribution of output will be determined primarily by. Now you get a chance to pause this and answer it. That's just going to be B, consumer income and product prices. Okay, so how will the system accommodate change? A market system is a dynamic environment and can quickly adapt to changes in consumer tastes and preferences and acts like a giant communication system. The business firm will find its best interest to make the changes reflected in the consumer choices. The consumers communicate preferences through their dollar votes. The businesses then respond to this by producing more or less or none of that product. This will soon be reflected in the demand for the resources employed in the production of the product. And when technology and resource prices change, this affects the cost the producers face when producing the good, and changes the amount of the good that will be produced and the price of the good. Now, the market system promotes technological improvements and capital accumulation. An entrepreneur or firm that introduces a popular new product will be rewarded with increased revenues and profits. New technologies that reduce production costs and thus product price will spread rapidly throughout the industry because of competition. Now, when you see the word technologies, relatively you're looking at the best example I can think of is like, so if you own a sewing company and you're hand sewing and then you get a sewing machine, right? So obviously your cost is going to go down a little bit, that you could produce more, right? So you're producing more with that new technology. When you have an abundance more of a product, you can lower the price, right? Then you could take it further than that. You know, if you have 10 people at a restaurant doing 10 different things, maybe you put in a robot and the robot makes it better. Technically, you won't need as many people, right? So without having many people, you're not paying as much labor. Then you could reduce your cost. Anything that is essentially decreasing your cost and increasing your products, that is a new technology. All right, so creative destruction. So this occurs when new products and production methods destroy market position of firms that are not able or willing to adjust. So you can kind of think of this too as like the old iPod when the iPhone started putting music and stuff on it, right? The typewriter to the computer, right? So sometimes new things come out and they destroy old things. Now, entrepreneurs and business owners can purchase more capital goods as they become more and more profitable.